The United States of America, the land of the free and home of the brave. Except it's not free. In fact, it's really quite expensive. It's really more the land of barely scraping by. But that doesn't look as good on a mug or a beer helmet or the doormat to your double wide. Welcome to the Most Censored News. I'm Lee Camp. New numbers show 64% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. That's hundreds of millions of people. And part of the reason for that is because
rent, it's too damn high.
Whatever happened to that guy? I bet the ruling elite bought him off with an affordable sublet and an in-unit washer and dryer. But he's still not wrong. The rent is too damn high, and house costs are insane as well. You've seen the headlines, right? U.S. rents surge, leaving behind a generation of younger workers. U.S. rents hit a record high for the 17th month in a row. The national median rent now is $1,937. Since March 2021, rents have grown 17.11%, an annual growth rate of nearly 8.56% that increased rents by $283 on a monthly basis. One might assume if you think about supply and demand, that rents would only go up if people had a lot more money to spend on said rent, right? But that's not the case. So why the hell is this happening if most Americans are struggling to even put food on the table or to have a table to put under their food? Hot tip, you can lay the food on top of the dog cage and use that as the table. One of the main reasons rents keep going up is because no matter how much sellers charge, someone will buy them. Usually rich, mega landlord investors. Investors bought a quarter of all homes sold last year, driving up rents, and those investors often don't care if the homes they're investing in sit empty for a good long while, years maybe even. 16 million homes currently sit vacant across the U.S. In every state across the country, many homes remain empty while hundreds of thousands of Americans face homelessness. That's right, if empty homes were given to homeless people, each homeless person in America could have roughly 20 houses. Literally roughly 20 houses. I know that sounds ridiculous to just give them 20 houses. So, all right, how about just 10? 10. Just each homeless person gets 10 houses. What? I'm negotiating. Okay, each homeless person gets 6 houses, final offer. Of course, 20 is just an average. In some cities, it's even worse. Detroit has the most vacant homes per unhoused person. 116 empty homes per unhoused person. Jesus. Meanwhile, if one of those homeless people builds a nice little, cubby hole out of cardboard boxes, the cops will come and they'll tear it down. Can't have a cardboard box out here. Hell no. Just millions of meaningless empty houses owned by rich ass holier than thou douche canoes. The numbers are jaw-dropping. Wall Street has purchased hundreds of thousands of single-family homes since the Great Recession began. Institutional investors may control 40% of U.S. single-family rental homes by 2030, according to MetLife Investment Management. 40%? Call me simple. Call me antiquated. I don't care. But you see, how it used to work was, if you wanted a house, like the square thing with the windows and the chimney and the dog, if you wanted one of those for you and your family to live in, you bought one for you and your family to live in. And then, drum roll please, you and your family lived in said house. Ha ha! That was it. That was the whole thing. Half the block wasn't made up of empty McMansions a hedge fund was holding onto in the same way someone collects fucking rare stamps or Pez dispensers or authentic ancient Roman porcelain dildos. Nowadays, if you want a neighborhood with people actually living in the homes around you, like a community, you have to live somewhere no investor ever wants to get near. So the most thriving communities in America now are downwind from manure plants and next to the tailings pond of a DuPont petrochemical factory. One of the largest companies buying up all the homes and raising all the rents is Blackstone. Even though they've had some financial trouble as of late, Blackstone is still the biggest property landlord in the country. Here's a report from just last month about Blackstone Group buying up San Diego's affordable housing and hiking up the rent prices. So in this case, they're specifically snatching up what had been affordable housing and then screwing over those who live there. That's bullshit. If you hate San Diego so much, couldn't you just go poke a SeaWorld dolphin in the eye? Do you really have to screw over every poor person? Blackstone purchased thousands of San Diego's affordable housing units in 2021, then raised rent for some units between 43 and 64% in just 2 years. It's tough to overstate how large Blackstone is. As The Guardian reported, you have put money in the pockets of Blackstone's evil villains if you have ever worn Spanx, have ever matched with someone on Bumble, stayed in a Hilton hotel or a Center Parcs resort, visited Legoland, Madame Tussauds, eaten the still-beating heart of a hummingbird, or made sweet love to your cousin's dental hygienist. And sure, I made up the last two of those, but the rest are true. Blackstone isn't just a gigantic landlord. They own and invest in loads of other stuff. Last year, the company invested $270 billion, bringing the total value of the assets it manages to $881 billion, slightly more than the gross domestic product of Switzerland and more than twice that of Denmark. And when you're as large as Blackstone, you of course don't care when people, your tenants, complain. Blackstone owns over 300,000 rental properties across the U.S., and they've been on a buying spree over the past 3 years. And while they mostly avoided evicting people during the pandemic, starting in August of last year, they unleashed the hounds of hell on anyone who dared to be poor enough to be behind on their rent. Blackstone has initiated a wave of evictions in a number of states. For instance, Blackstone filed over 350 evictions in Florida between August and November of 2022. Well, it's tough to feel bad for someone kicked out of Florida. It's like being kicked out of an insane asylum with flower print wallpaper. Shouldn't you be happy? On top of all the evictions, Blackstone has signaled that they plan to raise rents even higher, and they've been fighting rent control in some states. Blackstone also spent millions of dollars fighting against rent control in California. Blackstone gave over $7 million in 2018 and more than $7 million in 2020 to oppose statewide ballot initiatives that would have limited rent increases. But one country actually did fight back against Blackstone: Denmark. That same country that they're twice as large as. So it really was David versus Goliath, or rather, Oscar versus Goliath, where Oscar just takes Goliath to a pub and drinks him under the table. Denmark passed something that became known as the Blackstone Law. As well as preventing new landlords from raising the rent for 5 years, the legislation also prohibits landlords from offering tenants money to move out. The law targets all landlords, pension funds, and big investors. Wow! Why don't we, in the U.S., do something like that? Because, and this is important, here in the U.S., we hate when another country has a good idea. We have a long history of hating and sometimes going to war with countries that have good ideas. If you have universal health care or zero extreme poverty or a sustainable system, then you're goddamn dead to us. You are the worst. I mean, look at China's bullet trains. Great idea. Here's what we do in the United States, just to show China that we're nothing like them. We have the slowest, dirtiest, most explodey trains in the world. Ha ha! Teach you a lesson, China. Who's laughing now? Denmark's law actually has some teeth to stop companies like Blackstone from destroying people's lives. But here in the corporatocracy of America, the best we can hope for is Ro Khanna's bill called the Stop Wall Street Landlords Act of 2022, which, if you look at its title, sounds good. But this bill denies certain tax and other benefits to large investors whose assets exceed $100 million in a taxable year for investment in single-family housing. It denies such investors a tax deduction for interest paid on a single-family home mortgage, for insuring such homes, and for the depreciation of such homes. All it does is deny these fuckers a tax break. So basically, it changes nothing except we've stopped spending taxpayer money to the richest people in the country so that they can more easily buy up houses and rental properties and jack the prices. And actually, that bill won't even likely get passed. Even just that probably won't happen. Well, this is all some pretty bad news, but one thing is nice. At least the biggest, most awful landlord in the country has nothing to do with the two biggest, most awful corporations in the country that I told you about on the first episode of Most Censored News, BlackRock and Vanguard. Oh, except BlackRock and Vanguard own Blackstone. God damn it! You really can't get away from these assholes. And wait, if BlackRock and Vanguard own Blackstone and Blackstone owns Legoland, then Legoland is BlackRock and Vanguard? No! You lied to me, Lego Luke Skywalker. You said you hadn't gone over to the dark side. How could you? Well, folks, that's the final episode of the Most Censored News. For now, I'm moving on, but I hope you continue to support Mint Press. They do amazing work, and I've loved working with them. And I may be bringing you more videos for Mint Press someday in the future. But for now, I will still be doing my live streams 4 times a week at leecamp.net at 3 p.m. Eastern. So you can join me there, hang out with me there, and I really hope you will. You can also get my new ebook called Dangerous Ideas by becoming a member at leecamp.net. Until next time, keep fighting.